In this episode of Home Theater Geeks, I chat with Mike Heiss, longtime industry consultant and journalist, about what he saw at CES 2024. So stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Hey there, Scott Wilkinson here, the Home Theater Geek. In this episode, I am happy to have on as my guest Mike Heiss, longtime industry consultant and journalist. He writes for Residential Tech Today at restechtoday.com and Hidden Wires at hiddenwires.co.uk. And he's also a longtime fellow at CEDIA. In fact, he's a jolly good fellow.
Yep.
And I'm always happy to have him on the show, this time to talk about CES. Hey, Mike, welcome back from Vegas.
Oh, boy, am I glad to be back. Let me tell you.
You know, as we were talking about offline, I didn't go to CES this year for a variety of reasons.
I am.
One of which was to avoid COVID. And so you took one for the team and, in fact, came back with COVID. Oh, man.
Indeed, I did. But it's like a bad cold mostly, and I've got the Paxlovid, so it just gives me an excuse not to do anything for a week.
Good. Well, as you shouldn't, because I mean, even though, CES is always a real heavy duty time with lots of stuff going on, and you're going here and there and hither and yon, and never a dull moment for sure. Yep. So how are the crowds this year?
Well, I was going to joke, but they're quoting 135,000 people. So that's significantly better than last year and significantly better than the year before as they were coming out of COVID. And I was really surprised that the aisles were quite full.
Now, were a lot of people masking or no?
Well, clearly not enough. and it serves me right. I only wore my mask like half the time. So I'm clearly paying the consequences for that.
Yeah.
But it was well attended. Everybody was kind of jovially happy. A lot of international people, much more than the last 2 years. So all things being considered, it was a good show. It was a different show. I mean, you can see, and I know we're going to talk mostly about our kind of favorite area, but the tenor of the show has changed dramatically. It's, it's not just phonographs and TVs.
Well, yes, and we are going to talk about that quite a bit. In fact, you went in your notes that you sent me, you said CES is no longer a showplace for TVs.
Well, it really hasn't been for many years because TVs as a category, well, first of all, there aren't a gazillion manufacturers. It's basically LG, Samsung, TCL, Hisense, Sony, and everybody else. But there was the people that going back, I mean, this is like my 47th of these silly things. And there used to be Hitachi and RCA, and well, RCA is there, but that's another discussion.
That's a story we're going to get into.
Yeah.
Toshiba,
and all of those, folk, and anything below the major brands is a house brand or it's a non-brand. Not that there's and the people like Vizio were missing. We'll talk about that later. But even the TVs were there. It wasn't just about the TV-ishness of them. And AI, all God's children got AI.
Right. And that is going to be one of the major themes of the show, certainly.
Oh, yeah.
But before we get there, I want to start with, we have one picture. You took one picture of the crowds, and let's take a look at that because, man, oh, man, that is a lot of people. That's what I remember.
Yeah, that's the going into the main hall in that upper level, and you can see in the back center where it says world's first 4K wireless transparent TV. That's the entry to the LG booth, where the last couple of years they had like the tunnel of OLEDs.
Right.
And last year it was rollable, and this year it's that transparent thingy.
Right.
And everybody was trying to get in and see it.
Yeah.
Or see through it.
Or see through it, actually. So we're going to talk about the transparent TV phenomenon probably in part 2, because we are going to divide this episode into 2 parts because there's so much to cover, as always. The first thing I want to focus on, though, is your assertion that the TV more and more is being touted as the control center for the entire home.
Well, LG and Samsung in particular, and to a lesser degree, TCL and Hisense, and that's all that's left.
That's all that's left.
Well, because they're also big into the whole ecosystem of smart home. Excuse me. And in the Samsung booth, it was all smart this, smart that. I was the only one in the room who wasn't smart. And it was the ability to show a map of your house or your abode on the TV, and use the TV through Matter to set things up and just to use the TV for more than entertainment. And that's what the manufacturers were promoting. But the sort of undercurrent story is not TV for TV. Yeah, okay, fine, watch TV. I don't care. That's nice. Or use it for smart home control. Okay, fine, that's nice too. Hey, but did you see that ad for fill in the blank? And that was and CTV, other than AI, CTV, connected television, was one of the big buzzwords of the show. The ability of a TV set to connect to streaming and do targeted ads.
Right. Now we have a graphic from Samsung booth number 2 that will show that is their Tizen OS.
Tizen is their OS. So it's Samsung Tizen, and that's also sort of interesting. Samsung Tizen, LG Web OS. TCL is using, depending upon the model, not as much Roku as they used to, and their Q series, their higher end series, are all Google TV. Vizio has their own, and Hisense has some Roku and some Vita, and that's a way for them to monetize TV, and it's clearly working.
So one thing that you mentioned to me that I found so interesting was there were a number of escorts that were taking people up to suites in the Aria, I guess.
The Aria, yeah.
But in the before times, that would have been to look at the new TV models.
Or they wouldn't be there because other than Vizio, who historically had never been on the floor, but they used, and I'm sure you must have gone one year when they had this huge suite or ballroom in the Wynn or in the Cosmo.
It was in the Wynn, yeah.
Right, but this year, all they had was a room where they... presumably I wasn't invited, where they were selling ads. And it was in the area, which is what they call the C space, which was all the connected kinds of things. And I had an appointment with a company called Telly that I know we'll talk about later. And in order to get upstairs into the suite, you had to go to the upper lobby, and there were all these folks with signs.
That's
it was
graphic
like landing
3.
at LAX. And, Mr. Wilkinson, your limo is here. Yeah, so it's interesting. Look at that. You see the lady in the Elvis thing, I think, was Samsung. The guy in the back looking at his phone was Tubi, which is a big, fast, free system owned by Fox. Amazon Ads, you can guess what they were doing. I don't know what GWI is. And there was some other woman who really wasn't paying attention from somebody else, but there were a dozen more folks doing what that gentleman and those ladies were doing.
Was escorting people to the suites.
Because it wasn't like, hey, what's going on at the fill in the blank booth?
Mm-hmm.
You had to have an appointment, make it far in advance. I almost didn't get my appointment with Telly, and then you had to wait downstairs, call them, and they take you up.
Wow.
And that's just the way the business is going.
And you also had a picture of the lady doing that for Vizio, which, again, you used to be able to just walk into the Vizio booth. Well, you had to make an appointment. But,
and they didn't have a booth. They just
Well, it was it was a ballroom.
Yeah. And that was the only presence that Vizio had. And, clearly a discussion for another time, but, Vizio's they used to announce a lot of TV sets each year, and I don't think they've announced maybe one or two all year, but every press release I get from Vizio is about adding a channel to their, streaming service.
And these people were taking you up to the suite, not necessarily to talk about hardware, but to talk about
what's a TV.
What's a TV? They were wanting to sell advertising.
Yeah, or talk about it, to be sure.
Yes. Yeah.
There were no TV. Now the only one I went into was Telly, and there, as we'll talk about, that's a different situation. Mm-hmm. But I would bet that in all the other suites, there were no TVs. There was a very nice lady from CVS Caremark escorting people up. They don't sell TV. They don't have a TV brand. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, Samsung did, but the signs for Samsung just had their smart home logo. It didn't say, yo, come up and see the TVs. That was in the convention center.
Right. So really, I think what I'm getting from this is the emphasis of the TV away from the TV itself and more as a vehicle for ads and commerce.
A newspaper is a thing you wrap your fish in. I mean, it's a delivery method.
Right. The
TV is a delivery method because, again, a topic for another time. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the economics of the TV business, all these streaming services, you have to support them, especially what's called FAST, free advertiser supported TV, things like Tubi and Pluto. Mm-hmm. They have to support their services by selling ads. Roku is not in this. If you want to have a little fun at the next party you're at, ask some friends what business Roku is in, and they'll probably say, oh, don't they make those little adapter things? Well, they do, but now that's just a means to an end. In fact, last night at the Emmys, the Weird Al movie that was on the Roku channel won an Emmy Award. Mm-hmm. Because they're in the business of making or buying content and selling ads in it, just like good old-fashioned TV.
Well, and taken to the extreme, we get to this product that you found, that you actually did go see, called Telly.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's like, if you remember the old Monty Python. Oh, and I should have done this, but they would have thrown me out. Remember the old Monty Python joke? There's a penguin on top of the telly.
Yes.
Okay. And that's why I have penguins all over my house. It is one of the most interesting concepts I've seen. And the founder of it is one of the co-founders of Pluto, which is owned now by Paramount. I guess he made bazillions of dollars when he sold it to Paramount. Yeah. And Telly is, hey, Scott, would you like a free TV?
Why, sure. I'd love one.
Well, go to freetelly.com and you can sign up and you can get on the list to get a free TV.
It's a free TV.
Free TV. It's not bad looking. It's a 55-inch 4K HDR. And all right, now you're looking at the website. There you go. The smartest price. It's free. But now stop right there. And you can see in the middle is a sound bar made by designed, I should say, by my old pals at Harman Kardon. And then if you keep scrolling up, or if you go to one of the shots that I took, there is a second screen.
Let's go to graphic 5 and we'll see that.
And there you go. So that set is showing Netflix through a dongle that they supply, or you can, BYOD, bring your own dongle. But there's this separate screen on the bottom.
Below the sound bar.
Below the sound bar. So the thing is a bit high. Mm-hmm. It's a 55-inch screen. It's not as wide as a 65 or 75, but it's really high.
It's tall.
Tall, yes. In that bottom screen, you can see weather and you can see sports scores. But on the far side, where it conveniently says ad, there is an ad, and that's how they pay for it. That larger part of the bottom screen can show a news ticker or the financial wires or sports scores or the weather, as you see here. And it's a clever idea. They claim they've been shipping them since May. They won't say exactly how many they've shipped, but one has to believe a fair number. When it came out, I didn't put my name on it because they weren't doing review samples, and they would maybe figure out I'm a journalist. I put my wife's name on the list. We have different last names because she really doesn't want to be associated with me. And what do you call it? And we still haven't heard back from them, but they claim they're going to ship 500,000 sets this year.
Wow.
And it has built in, or another way to describe this is if a TV, a sound bar, a Roku or a Fire TV, and a Peloton screen had a love child, it would be Telly, because it has two cameras built in. And one is you can do Zoom calls with grandma, and it does have a shutter so you can close it. But there's a second IR camera for motion tracking. So it doesn't have a privacy issue. It doesn't know that it's Scott or Mike, but it knows that there are two people or one person in the room because they want to know that you're watching TV. But if you're doing exercise, you can either do like they have yoga things or Peloton, all that stuff that the doctor keeps telling me to do.
Right.
And with the motion tracking, there you go. It's a little hard to tell, but it'll track your motion using there. You can see the lines, the fellow with the glove, and you can see the lines. So that's the Peloton-esque kind of thing. So you got to give them credit. They've done, it's if I'm so smart, why didn't I think of that? Well, I didn't think about it because I don't have a gazillion dollars to, do the startup. Right. But it's an interesting concept, and they were clearly in that space. They wouldn't be on the show floor. They didn't have anything to sell to dealers. They're giving away a free TV.
Yeah.
But they wanted people to buy ads, and that's why we're there.
Right. There were a couple other interesting parts that I thought about this. If we look at the next graphic, we can see.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
This is another really interesting thing where you're watching a basketball game, and on the bottom screen, in that extra screen, there's merch for you to buy.
Yeah, it's even better. You can see, for those that are into basketball, it's the Golden State Warriors versus whoever they're playing. But Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, go Cougs, are, my son went to Washington State, and Klay Thompson actually played there, and I saw him play in beautiful downtown Pullman. But it knows that I'm watching a Golden State game, and it puts up the merch for Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And then if you click to buy, it gives you a QR code, but it's not going to give me Lakers stuff. Why would I want to do that this week? But it knows what game I'm watching.
Incredible. So if we go to the next graphic, you'll see the ability to just click on that or do that QR code. Yeah, you bought a pair of speakers or a pair of shoes or something.
Well, I guess you could buy speakers too, but they sponsored, if you had TWiT on there, but what do you call it? Yeah, and Under Armour sneakers, and you can do TelePay, or you can do a QR code, or Nike LeBron. I'm sure if it was a Lakers game, I'm sure there'd be lots of LeBron merch.
Whoa! Man, that was a great transition. And as you said, there's also a video camera for Zoom.
Yeah. I mean, it is insanely well thought out. or other meetings, and you can see there's the
Right.
Zoom ID, and there's something else
Passcode on
on
the
the
bottom.
screen. But in the bottom, they want to do. They will be doing group watch. So you live up north, and I live down in LA. And if we want to watch the Emmys last night, and we both had tellies, although you can do this on some of these streaming devices,
Right.
and we wanted a bellyache about why are the Emmys about shows that nobody's
That
ever
we know
heard
nothing
of?
about, right.
We were watching it last night, and Leslie was going, the heck are these shows? But if we could have that conversation using the lower screen while watching the main program in the top screen. And again, I mean, if I'm so smart, why didn't I think of it? It'll be curious. Let's check next year and see how it does.
See how
And
it does.
If I get one, I'll definitely let you know, and I'll take the computer in and we can do a little show on that one.
Yeah, sounds great, man. That's great. Hey there. If you'd like more, you need to be a member of Club TWiT, which costs only $7 a month, and that gives you full access to everything the club has to offer, including all podcasts ad-free and access to the club Discord. Or you can subscribe to Home Theater Geeks by itself for $2.99 a month. You can also get the ad-free audio version for $2.99 a month on Apple Podcasts. New episodes drop every Thursday via Club TWiT and Apple Podcasts. With full club membership, you can even watch us record the show live. Just keep an eye on the events tab in the club Discord for the schedule. I hope you'll join me for a weekly dose of home theater geekitude. Until then, geek out.